Lithium-ion batteries. What are they and how did we get here? Well, to backstep a little bit in history, first rechargeable battery was developed in the 1860s. This was a dry lead-acid battery. From then, we've developed wet cell batteries, as well as different types of celling in the lead-acid batteries. These allowed for different developments, such as starting, deep cycle, and dual-purpose batteries to be made for different applications. Now, as time went on, we realized advances could be made here, specifically in the 1970s, when lithium-ion batteries first began to pop up. In the 90s, far more research began to put into them, and many companies realized the possible potential there. This brings us in present day, where we see lithium-ion batteries commonplace in pretty much any electronic device, whether it be a smartphone, a laptop, EVs, whether that be cars, boats, planes, whatever you can think of. Chances are lithium-ion batteries are used. Now, lead-acid are still used in commonplace, but for any real performance application, where any money can be behind, lithium-ion batteries are placed. Now, why is that? Well, they're far more efficient, they have better lifespans, and at the end of the day, they're comparatively simply better. Now, why is that? Well, lithium-ion batteries are made of varying lithium cells that allow for rapid discharge as well as rapid recharge. This makes them better for pretty much any application. So let's begin to look at these cells. So let's draw a little lithium cell. So in the basics, you have the cell itself divided into a couple components. You have positive wall, the cathode, a solution, and a separator, anode, as well as another wall. This would be the negative wall. Now, let's dive into the parts, shall we? Positive wall. Now, the positive wall, or positive electrode, is typically made of aluminum. On the opposite side, the negative wall, or negative electrode, is commonly made of copper. Why is that? Well, aluminum and copper are both relatively inexpensive. They're great current collectors, they're highly electrically conductive, and they allow for a soft texture. The softer to the texture, the better bonding capabilities they have. This allows for the overall performance of the battery to fluctuate better. Now, let's dive into the individual components. Below the positive wall, we have the cathode. Now, what is the cathode? Well, the cathode is normally varying compounds inside the cell. Typically, you have NMC, LFP, NCA, and NMCA. Now, what are these? Well, these are different compounds of varying elements, with each one having its own benefit. The big one being nickel. Nickel has great energy density. However, the downside is that it decreases longevity. As energy density increases, the longevity of the battery actually decreases. This is just the basic order of things. This is how everything balances out. You can't have too much good without a little bad. Now, this leads to compounds like NMC 622 being used. This is probably the most commonly used compound in lithium-ion batteries that are currently used. Now, why is this? Well, it's 60% nickel, 20% magnesium, and 20% cobalt. The magnesium and the cobalt percentages balance out the dispersity in energy density and longevity. They increase the downside cost that nickel provides, while help benefit the upsides. All balances out. It's highly used in today's market and in production. So this is the biggest compound used in the cathode. Below the cathode, you get into this wibbly-wobbly solution. It's almost like a soup. It's not purely liquid, but it's not a solid. This solution facilitates the separator. The separator is another sort of wall. It exists inside the solution inside the solution, and it separates the positive and negative electrodes of the battery. Now, why does that matter? Well, if you've ever taken a positive and a negative lead of a battery and arced them together, you'll notice that whatever you touch will get incredibly hot, and if it's a circuit, it'll short. This is because it overloads the cells and it allows for a short to occur. So what do you do to prevent that? Well, you put a wall in between, or a separator in this circumstance. The separator is made of polyolefin, and a few other porous materials. Now, why does this matter? Well, it allows for good mechanical properties and good electrical properties, all balancing out to help maintain and prevent crossing of the positive and negative charges and causing a short. Without a good separator, the battery will short, could expand, contract, it'll overheat. In some circumstances, it'll explode. For those that have seen lithium-ion batteries and all the chaos that some people post about online, usually this is a result of a poor separator or a poor solution facilitating the separator. Let's bring it back to the solution. Now, what is the solution that we're talking about here? Well, like we said, it's almost a liquid, right? More so a liquid than a solid, that's for sure. What is it? Well, it's a combination of lithium salts, solvents, and other additives. Now, what does this do? Well, it allows for lithium ions to form. It lets lithium release and be pulled by electrons from the anodes or the cathode, depending on discharge or charging. We'll dive into that a little bit more. But for now, this is the general makeup of it, or specific makeup, I should say. Below the solution is the anode. And what does the anode do? Well, the anode allows for electrons to move from the other side to the cathode, or lithium to move to the opposite side, depending on charging and discharge. Basically, it's the flipped version of the cathode. However, opposed to all these mix of compounds, on the negative side, it is primarily made of graphite and or silicon. Now, why is that? Well, graphite has great storing capabilities and good exchanging capabilities when it comes to lithium. Now, what about the silicone? Well, the silicone is better at storing, but due to its substantially better storing capabilities, also causes some contraction and expansion. Now, why is this bad? Well, the more the cells contract and expand, the less stable the battery gets. Now, graphite is incredibly stable, so in order to benefit from each component, a lot of companies try to combine the two. So they try to make it a mix of graphite and silicone to benefit better storing capabilities while still being heavily safe and reliable. Usually, when a lot of batteries, if you've ever seen a really old battery, it kind of sinks into itself. A lot of the time, that's due to an overwhelming amount of silicone or a decrease in graphite over time. The cells tend to contract, the battery shrinks, become less stable, it becomes unsafe to use. It doesn't perform to its full capabilities, not nearly as much as it once did. So to prevent these, companies try to find a good balance between them. Now, what does this all mean? Well, this means that companies actually put the formation of these cells into great consideration. Now, what kind of formations do we get here? The three main forms are cylindrical, prismatic, and pouch. Now, what's the difference? Well, cylindrical, as the name implies, are cylindrical. They're in a cylinder with positive and negative on each end. They're fast, they're easy, and they're cheap. And they're compact. That's the biggest benefit, is they're small. These are what you're gonna get. Think of like a AA, that in a lithium ion formation. Compared to that, then you have prismatic. Now, prismatic batteries are flexible in size. They have a hard exterior, and they have a harder exterior. They're also can be much bigger compared to the cylindrical. That's in how they're made. The cylindrical is made by actual rolling the cells around each other to form that cylinder. Prismatic are actually sheets that are layered on top of each other. This allows for much bigger varying sizes, but along with that, you have a lower energy density per size compared to the cylindrical. Now with that, you get a longer life, but proportionally, they're not as efficient. Which brings us to the biggest one, a pouch. Now, the pouch style is going to be what you think of if you think of a car battery or the layers of battery that are underneath a Tesla, for instance. Pouches are actually layers of sheets that are weaved together and over each other. It allows for a great range of size, can be very large, they have great energy density properties, but they take a very long time to make, and they're typically very expensive. But they're the best performers. So it's up to companies to decide which one is the best for different situations. Put a lot of thought into it, and all in all, that's the basics of the forms, the cells, and how everything works together. Any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Thank you, and have a lovely day.